A short history of England. With regards to understanding the historical backdrop of England, it's regularly hard to tell when you ought to utilize the terms Britain or England. From the appearance of the Anglo-Saxons into the Romans' Britannia in the early 5th century AD, to the associations that recently bound the present-day nations of England, Scotland, Wales, Northern Ireland and Ireland, British history is positively perplexing. Composing for History Extra, Dr. Sean Lang isolates the historical backdrop of England from the historical backdrop of the British Isles. To bother the Scots, Welsh or Irish, say Britain when you mean Britain. To irritate antiquarians, say England when you mean England. Getting the qualification right might be troublesome, however it's significant. The first English were Angles, Saxons and Jutes of northern Germany and the Baltic locale, who assumed control over the Roman area of Britannia as the Roman domain fell. The native Britons kept up their hold in Wales and Cornwall, as did the Picts in northern Scotland, however in any case the entire island, including the south of current Scotland. At the appointed time they received Christianity, along these lines tying their fortunes straightforwardly to the Roman Church. They likewise built up a thriving and rich culture which pulled in the unwanted consideration of the Viking, privateer, people groups of Scandinavia, who slipped on point land, for example Britain, and for a period vanquished and managed the northern piece of it. The conflicts of obstruction against the Vikings joined the English realms and in the long run delivered the principal Saxon ruler of all England, Aethelstan. The English language. Old English Saxon England built up its own particular language and profoundly modern culture, until in 1066 it was assaulted and overwhelmed by Normans from northern France. For about 300 years from that point forward, England was tied near France, with a French-talking government and administering class. The English turned into a compliant group in their own territory. Over the long run, in any case, these French overlords became Anglicized through intermarriage with the English, and, with some French augmentations, English turned into the basic language, all things considered. It was these French, English, rulers who dispatched the fruitful, English, successes of Ireland and Wales. In Scotland, notwithstanding, King Robert the Bruce figured out how to oppose attack and Scotland stayed a different realm. Middle Age England was an affluent nation, thriving on exchange fine woolen material and remarkable for its energetic eagerness for the Catholic Church. The rulers of Middle Age England kept up significant terrains in northern and western France, and in the 14th century King Edward III ventured to such an extreme as to guarantee the French crown for himself. He did, to be sure, have a solid case, and the rulers of England battled a long arrangement of battles in France, known as the 100 Years' War, to keep up their entitlement to the French seat until in the end the French, propelled by Joan of Arc, constrained them in the 15th century. This calamity, which typically created furious recriminations among the English respectability, prompted an extremely wicked common conflict, later named the Wars of the Roses, in which adversary parts of the imperial house battled for the seat. The possible, and far-fetched, champ was Henry Tudor, who held onto the seat in 1485 and spent his rule fortifying his hang on it. The Tudors. The Tudors were Welsh by beginning and it was Henry Tudor's child, Henry VIII, who consolidated Wales into England, however it held its unmistakable language and character. It was additionally Henry VIII who, throughout his praised debate with the papacy about the situation with his union with his first spouse, Catherine of Aragon, hauled England out of the Church of Rome. This extremely important occasion in English history was profoundly horrible for the English, who had long gladly looked after their exceptional relationship with the papacy. It was particularly felt when the break with Rome prompted first Lutheran and afterward Calvinist Protestantism putting down establishes in England, particularly in the bigger towns and in the south and east of the realm. This strict unrest finished, under the rule of Elizabeth I, in the foundation of a crossbreed Church of England, which kept up the constructions, chain of command and texture of the Roman Church, yet consolidated them with an unmistakably Protestant philosophy. The Church of England likewise covered Wales. In Ireland, nonetheless, it was kept to the English pilgrim populace. Scotland had its own different Presbyterian, for example Calvinist, church. Under the Tudors, England created as an exceptionally fruitful state, with its administration vigorously concentrated on London, which gave close connects to the landmass. The English language formed into the complex verse of Shakespeare and, as English individuals settled abroad, it started its spread into the present worldwide language. The Tudor time frame additionally saw the development of the force of the English Parliament and a nearer, more associated connection among England and Scotland. Parliament, which alone had the ability to make, rule, law, was the body that gave legitimate status to the Tudor strict changes. By Elizabeth's rule, which started on the 17th of November 1558, Parliament was guaranteeing a significantly more prominent job for itself in government, including the selective option to force charges. Elizabeth figured out how to stay away from a genuine conflict with Parliament, however, when she kicked the bucket childless. In 1603, the seat of England passed to the Stuart ruler of Scotland, James VI, who consequently became King James I of England. The English Civil War. James initially wanted to join the realms of England and Scotland in one realm of incredible Britain, however the thought discovered no help. The Stuarts' case to manage by divine right, deriving their privilege from God, with no natural limitations on their forces, driven definitely to unpleasant contentions between Charles I and the English Parliament and ultimately, in 1642, to furnished clash. This English Civil War was important for a more extensive clash that remembered a strict common battle for Scotland and a significant Catholic disobedience in Ireland. Parliament won, crushing Charles's allies in both England and Scotland. The ruler was being investigated and executed. In January 1649, the government and House of Lords were nullified, and out of the disarray that followed, Oliver Cromwell arose as master protector of an English republic. Cromwell additionally constrained through an association with Scotland and forced his control on Ireland by beast power. Nonetheless, after he kicked the bucket, in 1658, there was a force vacuum that was ultimately filled by the rebuilding of the government, in the individual of King Charles II. Parliament's victory preposterous was fixed in 1688, when it welcomed a Dutch intrusion to overturn the Catholic child of Charles II, King James II, in what was named the Radiant Revolution. This moderately smooth English upset must be forced on Ireland and the Scottish High Countries by savage power. Catholic Ireland was rebuffed for its help for King James by being kept in never-ending neediness. In any case, when Scotland additionally fell into monetary breakdown, on account of the disappointment of its plan to set up a province at Darien in Central America, it looked for salvage in 1707 through an act and treaty of union with the a lot more affluent and more prosperous English state. This association delivered another realm, to be called Extraordinary Britain. The British Banner. It was in the century that followed the association that the English started to advance the making of another English personality, with a British banner, British devoted tunes and iconography, and, progressively, a British abroad realm. In 1801, another Act of Union brought Ireland into this joined kingdom of Great Britain and Ireland, as it was then formally called. As motorized modern creation ruled the British economy in the 19th century, this new British state quickly turned into the richest and most impressive country on earth. Modern England stayed by a long shot the biggest, most vigorously populated and richest piece of the realm. However, that didn't prevent the Victorians from empowering an intensely romanticized picture of a provincial England of pleasant nation towns. They additionally regularly mistakenly alluded to the entire realm as Britain, a propensity which proceeded with into the 20th century. However, it was likewise they who initially showcased, and frequently designed, a large part of the customary societies of Scotland, Wales and Ireland. Patriotism. The principal challenge to the solidarity of the realm came from Irish patriotism, which was in the end ready to exploit the circumstance toward the finish of the First World War in 1918, to arrange an effective conflict of autonomy, fought 1919-21, 6 northern regions in Ulster, be that as it may, selected to remain part of the United Kingdom. Albeit the Scots and Welsh held a solid feeling of public personality, the experience of 2 universal conflicts gave all the British a solid feeling of solidarity against the German danger. It was solely after the conflicts, as Britain's realm imploded and Britain sank in worldwide force and significance, that Scottish and Welsh patriotism started to advocate for itself, with calls for lapsed political force. These drove, in 1999, to the production of a Scottish Parliament and a Welsh Assembly. This prompted a restoration of English public inclination, frequently communicated through sport, despite the fact that the number of inhabitants in England was by then drastically changed by movement, first from Commonwealth nations and afterward from Eastern Europe. England's entrance in 1973 into the European Economic Community, presently the EU, had additionally brought up issues about the idea of British character, that drove in the end to the Brexit vote in the 2016 submission. Britain stays by a long shot the biggest piece of the United Kingdom, however its character and culture are profoundly different, with checked territorial, ethnic and even class contrasts in voice, demeanour and taste. London has developed so predominant that it is right around a different element from the remainder of the country. Devolution has made the Westminster Parliament an unusual half-breed of a British and an English assembly. It stays mistaken to call Britain, however numerous English individuals, just as numerous outsiders, still do. Thanks for watching. Bye now.
If you enjoyed this video, be sure to give it a like and subscribe to Life is Often if you haven't already. Click the bell icon to stay updated on all our latest content.